first question comes from David Malko of City TV. Your line is open.
CTV News, actually, but thanks for your time. Ms. Furstenau, thank you for the announcement and for your time and taking questions. I just want to ask you first about the debate last night and reflecting on it once again. I wanted to ask what, in your words, sets you apart from John Horgan and Andrew Wilkinson as a leader? What makes you different? I'm not asking about policies, your party platform, but I'm asking about you.
Thank you for the question. I went into the debates as I've come into this election campaign to introduce myself to British Columbians. I have been leader of the BC Green Party for 4 weeks and 2 days as of today. And I think what I wanted to introduce was the real Sonia Furstenau, but also to help people recognize that we can have an empathetic, compassionate, and also evidence-based approach to politics, and recognizing that yes, we absolutely have to deal with the urgent crises that people are facing right now, and at the same time we have this very serious responsibility to youth and to future generations to ensure that the decisions we're making right now are going to be ones that serve them. For so long, we've had politicians in so many places make choices that are short-term, that are based on their political fortunes, that are based on a 4-year election cycle. And as long as we keep doing that, we're not going to get different outcomes. And so what I'm focusing on is demonstrating that we can be addressing today's problems, but we also can be solving and preventing tomorrow's crises.
Follow-up?
Yeah, and just to kind of play on that theme a little bit, the Prime Minister in the past and through his past couple campaigns has always talked about the economy and the environment, and now we're looking at economic recovery and the environment and the balance between the two. Those are his words. I just wondered how you articulate kind of that line, how you ensure that your proposed policies around the climate emergency also don't hurt some British Columbians who may need help the most.
Yeah, I think that we have to be people-focused in our decision-making. We have to ensure that our policies put people at the center of what we're proposing. And so our climate plan very much is about a just transition. It's about recognizing that workers who currently work in sectors that are fossil fuel-oriented, that they have the opportunities, the training that they need to be able to move into another sector of the economy, at the same time as recognizing that that transition is what we owe to our youth and to our future generations. I just want to give a shout out. I was going to do it earlier. There are 2 co-managers here of Andrew Williamson's campaign, his daughter Lila, who is 16, and her friend Talia, who is also 16. Lila is one of the sustainability-teens who brought together the climate event last year when Greta Thunberg came. We have to be making policies and decisions that recognize that people today need government to support them, but that we also owe it to Lila and to Talia and to all of our youth that they are inheriting a safer, more resilient and sustainable world. We can do this. Our economic policies and our climate policies overlap in that they recognize that every decision we make, every investment we make has to be one that takes us to a healthier, more sustainable future. $1 billion innovation fund for entrepreneurs and small businesses to help them transform their businesses is an example. Ensuring that there is that training available for workers to move into different sectors. We can do this. We just have to have the will to make it happen.
Our next question comes from Andrew McLeod of the Tyee. Your line is open.
Yeah, hi, Sonia. If I understood correctly, you're talking about transitioning the social assistance system so that it's more like a basic income. And I'm wondering why that's the right approach rather than starting something new.
Thank you, Andrew. So one of the benefits that we've had in this last legislature is the Basic Income Panel. Their report will be coming forward later this year. And I think that we have to look at the situation we have right now, recognize the ways that it's not working. So in a lot of ways, and we've seen this in my constituency office a great deal, Our social assistance programs do not lift people out of poverty. They often entrench them into poverty. So how do we transform those programs so that they're actually lifting people out of poverty? And one of the things that we've heard over and over again from the experts and the economists who look at our programs is that there is this disincentive for people to work because of the clawbacks that happen. So if we recognize that a 12-month certainty around income assistance can give people that capacity to plan ahead, to have that ability to take some risks, and to go out, find work, be entrepreneurial, bring in other income. If they are incredibly successful, that's fantastic. We bring it back in revenue through income tax. But that is the way that we are going to lift people out of poverty, is to provide that level of certainty and capacity to plan. And so our proposal is, if you qualify for income assistance in British Columbia, for 12 months, you will receive that assistance. You can go get a full-time job, but you will have that certainty and that ability to plan that will help you move out of poverty.
Follow-up?
Yeah, sure. I think you also mentioned that you would provide a basic income for children aging out of care. One of the things that advocates for basic income say is, every time we hive off groups of sort of deserving poor, you create a problem for advocating for a more broad basic income. So we do it for seniors, we do it for children and families. If you add children in care, it's sort of one more group. I'm wondering what you make of that criticism and whether there is, I'm not even sure how to ask it, maybe hope for a more universal system.
Yeah, thank you, Andrew. And we have to be aspiring to having a province where people are not living in poverty. That should be our goal. And we have to find ways to get there. The focus on children and youth aging out of care is that they are the most vulnerable population we have in our province, and the statistics show us that they have a very high chance of ending up living without homes, of ending up in very dangerous and vulnerable situations. And they do not have the net, the safety net that so many of us rely on in family and community. And so this is a starting place, but absolutely we need to be striving to ensure that there are no people in BC living in poverty. We're taking the steps now, putting these solutions forward, and always trying to work towards better outcomes for everybody in the province.
Our next question comes from Rob Buckham of CTV. Your line is open.
Well, hi, Sonia. I think many pundits have declared you the winner in last night's debate, certainly online that seemed to be the consensus. I'm wondering if you think you were underestimated coming into that, and perhaps more so I'm wondering whether you think those positive reviews, or notwithstanding those, whether you'll be able to grow your number of seats. People may have had a very positive response, but I'm wondering if you think that will translate into more seats, after October 24th.
Ultimately, I think what we have to be focused on is that elections, the winners of elections, should be the people and the citizens of British Columbia. We focus so much on the political parties and the leaders. We should be engaging, as we did last night, in debates about ideas and policies and visions for the future of this province, and then working collaboratively to ensure that all of the best ideas are moving forward as quickly as they possibly can. I'm here because I am deeply committed to being in service to the people of this province. I went into the debates last night to introduce myself to British Columbia as a very recent leader of this political party, and I hope that what people saw was exactly who I am and why I'm here, and that I'm committed to standing up for policies and decisions and legislation that will actually make things better for the people of this province.
Follow-up?
I do, and it relates to the platform item in relation to schools and making sure that there's resources to develop credible and robust remote learning and hybrid learning options. I'm wondering if you can provide any more details on that. For example, whether that's something that would come into play right after the election, and if there's any specific money earmarked for that, and would it be the type of thing where if there's a second wave, and many more families wanted remote learning, they could do that?
So So standing here with me is Cyrus C. He's a candidate for New Westminster, and before we got into this election campaign, I worked with Cyrus and others to identify that one of the solutions that should have been brought forward by the previous government and by the previous Minister of Education, Rob Fleming, was to assure every district in this province that there would be no operational funding grant cuts as of September 30th of this year. This was a solution that would have given the schools certainty, the ability to plan, the ability to have flexibility in approaching this year. And unfortunately, we've adhered to a status quo where the funding grant, the operation funding grants, have been directly tied to exactly the number of students in classroom and a lower amount for students that are choosing a hybrid or learning from home option. This wasn't a time. This moment that we're in this province wasn't a time to be parsimonious about funding to education. This was a time to say, we can lean into this. We can actually give you a buffer. We can give you that capacity as school districts and principals and teachers to be flexible and nimble and innovative and imaginative about how we can deliver curriculum and learning to students at this most challenging and difficult time for them and families and teachers. And so yes, that would be my goal. Immediately upon entering back into the legislature, we need to get those operation funding grants to where they should have been, which is at 100% levels from 2019-2020, and give school districts and schools the ability to actually fit and rebuild a foundation for public education that can respond to this incredibly challenging time that we're in.
Questions, please press *1 on your touch-tone phone. Our next question comes from Kylie Stanton from Global. Your line is open.
Hi, Sonia. Thanks for taking my question. You mentioned you wanted to work collaboratively with the other parties to move the best ideas forward. If you had to pick, what part of your platform would you like to see realized?
Thanks, Kylie. And I have to say, as we've developed this platform and as I've read through it several times and worked with our incredible policy team to get it to the place that it is, I am so genuinely excited by the vision that we're putting forward. I think that British Columbians can recognize that this is a clear, foresighted, forward-looking vision that really addresses the urgent place that we are today to help small businesses, to help the tourism sector, to help people right now, but also to move us towards the province that we are capable of becoming. And so I'll be advocating for, of course, as many aspects of our platform to be going forward, and also recognizing at the same time the other parties have each brought forward good ideas, good solutions for this moment. We don't agree on everything. That's the great thing about diversity of ideas in the political world. But we can agree that if there are solutions that we can all see will work for people, we should be moving forward with those urgently.
Follow-up? Just on a personal note, how are you feeling after last night's debate?
This campaign has been obviously one of the most interesting and intense times in my life. Every day I get up and focus on the task at hand, the work that I have to do, on putting this vision in front of British Columbia and helping to help people see that the BC Green Party is here as a very viable alternative, as somewhere that they can vote for with hope, with a vision of the future that is positive and exciting. And so I'm not spending a lot of time looking backwards. I just keep looking forward and trying to do the very best job that I can. And I can tell you that my job is made easier by the incredible candidates who have stepped up, the incredible policy team who have helped put together this platform that we're introducing today, and the incredible staff, volunteers, supporters, and donors who have made all of this possible. I feel like I am standing with so many people when I stand up in front of the cameras, and I'm so grateful to everybody that's making this possible.
Our next question comes from Mary Brooks of the Island Social Trends. Your line is open.
Hi, Sonia. Well done last night. It looked like you got a lot of traction. I have two questions. One is on the nutrition program that you just mentioned. Is your goal there to increase the amount of food that's delivered through schools and or changes to the curriculum about nutrition itself?
Thanks, Mary, and it's both. I mean, I think it's a very distressing thing to me that we have the rates of child poverty that we do in British Columbia. And we know that when children don't have healthy, nutritious food, that they're not going to be the learners that they're capable of being. They're not going to be able to meet their full potential and thrive. And we've seen incredible examples in Cowichan Valley. Nourish Cowichan, run by my dear friend Fatima, who I've known for 30 years, has delivered healthy food to children and their families and has made an incredible difference in our community. And right now what we have to recognize is that we need to meet the basic needs of children in this province. They need to have healthy, nutritious food. We need to remove the stigma of that, and we need to attach it, as you point out, to ensuring that children are getting information and education about how to have a healthy life and the role that nutrition plays in that. This is about ensuring that we understand how, as a province, how essential nutrition and good health is to the well-being of all of us.
And yes, on the school funding, the per pupil fee that was, I did an interview with the Ministry of Education in early September, and they said that the $7,560 per pupil fee, which was up by about $100 from the previous year, would be maintained. And if I'm hearing you correctly, you're saying that they reduced it if there were more remote students. So that means they made a shift within 10 or 15 days there. And then also, I'm sure you're aware, but I'm looking for how nuanced the green approach would be to the per pupil funding, because as you know, there's operational supplements even now. So schools don't just get per pupil, they also get more money if they have special needs students, French learners, Indigenous students, non-graduated adults, and whether students are farther away from school. So what is your overall approach to, do you know how the amount was changed and what your approach would be?
Yeah, we put out a press release. I spoke with the former Minister of Education before this election was called and really indicated that we wanted that clarity and assurance from him that the per student funding would be equal for every student attached to the school. So what we understand has happened is that if it's a student in the school, that's one level of per student funding, as you've indicated, that didn't go down. But if a student isn't attending in person, there's a slightly lower level. And for students that didn't come back to their school community for this year, for any variety of reasons, the funding isn't there. What we were advocating for, and what I am advocating for right now, is just to have maintained what the funding was for 2019-2020, and just give that capacity to schools to have that flexibility and nimbleness. And yes, we do see there is supplementary funding, but we do have the second lowest per student funding in Canada. And we have to recognize that our funding model has left a lot of students falling through the cracks, has left a lot of teachers feeling like they can't meet their students' needs, and has left a lot of students without the supports from EAs, from psychologists, from speech therapists that they need to be able to get to a place where they can meet their full potential. We know that there's long wait lists for students to get assessments, and without those assessments, they don't get that additional funding. So we have a lot of work to do, as I said, to move our public school system from a feeling of scarcity to a feeling of abundance. We could have started that work this year by maintaining the 2019-2020 funding, operational funding grant levels. That wasn't done, and that's a commitment that we make.
Our next question comes from Tim Ford of Victoria Buzz. Your line is open.
Good afternoon, Ms. Furstenau. Thanks for taking my question. I wanted to follow up on your promise in terms of the form of basic income here. Just with regards to paying for a program like this, your platform talks a little bit about closing loopholes in the speculation tax, making sure corporations and multinational companies are paying their fair share. Can you give a little bit more detail about other revenue streams that you'd explore to pay for these types of policies?
Yeah, and we have put out a costing form for our platform and identified what our investments would cost, but it's clear, the evidence shows that when people fall below a level of poverty where they don't have access to housing or basic services, that ultimately costs us more than what it would cost to ensure that they have what they need to be able to have their basic needs met. For so long, we've been in this false economy of thinking that not investing in people is a way to save money. What we've found out very clearly, and what we see with the growing crisis of homelessness in this province, is that it costs us more to not meet people's basic needs. And so we are pointing in a direction that says that everybody in BC should have their basic needs met. And to do that, we will have a more thriving society, a more thriving economy, and we are committed to that.
Follow-up?
Yes, thanks. Recent polls have placed your party in the distant third behind the NDP and the Liberals. Heading into the final 2 weeks of the election here, respectfully, do you feel that, given the position that your party is in that polling data, you're able to offer more daring strategies while not necessarily saying, we're going to pay for it this way or that way?
3 days before the election in 2017, there was a poll that was put out on the front page of the Times Colonist that put me in a distant third in Cowichan. I've stopped paying attention to polls from that time. We are focused on putting solutions forward. They are bold, they are courageous, but they are evidence-based, and they are visionary, and they point to a future that we can have in this province in which people are thriving, our environment is healthy and sustainable, our children are having their needs met, and our youth can look forward to a future that feels far more resilient and safe than it does now.
Our final question for today comes from Lisa Cordasco of CHLY News. Your line is open.
Thank you. Thank you for taking my call, my question, Sonia. In reference to your earlier comments, how are students and teachers unsafe in schools now? Because according to Dr. Bonnie Henry, they are safe.
I think that what's important is that we listen to teachers and we understand what they're going through and that we hear them. And for a long time in this province, teachers have not felt heard. I was a teacher and I've been a mother for 26 years. My children have been in school for many, many years now. And for a long time, we've disregarded what teachers have said about the learning conditions in their classrooms, about their efforts to meet the needs of every child, and yet the lack of resources, the lack of support to do that, the triaging that happens, whether it's for mental health supports or whether it's for educational assistance supports. We shouldn't have this sense of scarcity in our education system. I cannot understand a society that does not want to invest fully in its children and its future. Our children should be in their classrooms with teachers, everybody feeling a sense of support and abundance and everybody's needs being met. This is what we should be striving for.
Follow-up?
Yes, so how will your announcements today make them safer?
Well, Lisa, my announcement today is our proposal. We're in this election campaign, which means that we're not in the legislature doing the work that we should be doing, addressing the concerns that people are raising, getting help for small businesses, tourism sector, getting help to teachers. What I've been disappointed to hear from many schools and principals over the last several weeks is that they've laid off teachers, they've pushed classes together so you have up to 30 kids in one classroom, and this is not the conditions that we should be looking at during a global pandemic. We should be striving to have the safest learning conditions that we can, and the conditions that allow everybody to be thriving. This is very important to me, and it's a key piece of our platform, and I'm very proud of the work that has been done to bring forward what really truly expresses our vision for education in British Columbia. Thank you, everybody.